Okay, the class is now being recorded. I'll start by welcoming you into the 2023 academic year. I'm going to be your lecturer. I go by the name Mr. Magia H. We'll be working together for this whole semester from now up until August. I'll be lecturing you guys finance in media. So I'm just quickly going to share my screen, and then we're also gonna go through some classroom rules or process that we have to follow on each and every class room that we're gonna have. Okay, if you are on your Teams, for those who will be new to Teams, this is how your Teams will display. Where you are seeing the R for Ruby, you'll be seeing mine as well as others who have joined the class. And then most of the time your mix will be muted by me this side, meaning that even if you try to unmute it, you won't have access to the mic. But most of the time I will give you the mic only after when you have got a question or there is something that you want to address urgently. So for you to be able for me to identify that there is someone who have got a question within our class, therefore you'll have to use the raise a hand function. So once your hand is raised, it will show on my side that there is a hand being raised. If I can't notice the hand, you can therefore use the chat section and then just let me know or inform me that there is someone who just raised a hand. I've got my smartphone open on the side with the chat section so that I don't get to miss your conversation or your questions. So you can just say that there is a hand. So once you type that there is a hand on my side on my smartphone, it will just show exactly now, like now that someone just posted a message, and I'll be able to read it as we go on. So if you have got a question or something while I'm busy moving on, and once we start with the lesson, only lesson question related will be answered during the lesson, and then those which are not related to the lesson will be answered at the end of the lesson. So this is the raise hand. This is also where you lower your hand. And as we go on or move on, if I ask you guys if you are following up and you have any question and you don't have any question, I'll prefer that you use the reaction and you just give me a thumbs up, and it will show a thumbs up like this one down there to show that you are all sorted and you are following up. You don't have any questions so far. So this is all the basic in terms of using the Microsoft Teams. So we've got the chat section. These are the number of people that have joined, and then we've got the raise hand if you want to use the mic to ask your question instead of typing. And then we've got the reaction where you're gonna put in your reaction if you are all still okay in terms of us moving forward. And if there is something funny, there are still those kind of icon where you can just press them. So these are the type of icons that or type of icon within the MS Teams that I want you guys to familiarize yourself with. So this is the mic function. You just press it and unpress it. Normally, if we are on a Teams meeting, sometimes you'll find that if I go to the presenter mode, there will be an MS Teams function that will appear on my side to show that I'm now on the presentation view. So meaning that I won't be able to fully see if someone fully raised a hand if I'm presenting the PowerPoint. But through the chat section, I can be able to still see the chat section on my smart device or my phone, which means that I will prefer you guys use the chat section. And when I give you the opportunity to ask any question, then you can be able to raise your hand and I'll unmute you. Then from there, you can unmute yourself. So those are the only things that we're gonna be using in terms to govern the class, to also make sure that when other people join, we do not actually get to have interruption where other join with their videos on, mic on, and then they're in a loud place and then it start to interrupt. Yes, I noticed that you did manage to find the raise hand. So yeah, so that is all in terms of governing the class. So as you can see from my profile, there is a profile picture. So that will be a picture of me. So if you're gonna meet me somewhere on the road or in campus, so If you see someone that looks like that picture, that is me. Unfortunately, today I can't turn on my camera, but as time goes on, I'll be able to turn on cameras. So in terms of our classes, I believe we are all part-time students. So in terms of our classes, we're gonna be having Monday classes every week. So we're gonna be using the same link every week. So what's gonna happen is that the first lesson, which is from 6 to 8, will be our lesson, will be a different lesson. And then from 8 to 10 will also be another lesson, meaning that in between I will give us a 10 to 15 minutes break to actually take to stand up, stretch our body, go and grab something. If you want to eat something within that 10 minutes, and then we continue with another lesson. So for today, we'll focus on lesson one, and then on the second class, we're gonna focus on lesson two. So let's just start with our lesson for today. So finance in media. So this is the module subject. We are starting with lesson one. So also, if you are looking to contact me, this is my email. So you can use the Boston email that is provided within every PowerPoint presentation. And I'll also be updating the one on the call campus, where you're gonna be also seeing this exact one with this one. So why the subject in terms of finance in media? You guys are studying media, so how does the subject relate to media? So this subject is there to prepare you extensively for entry into a workplace as a sound with a sound knowledge based on the basic principle underlying financial management. And financial management is a vital concept, or is a vital concept or subject that each and every person within any industry have to understand for them to be able to see how much they are worth and what they are currently contributing towards the objective of the company. So here I've made a question, some free list of questions that could indicate to show you the importance of finance. So the first question that you need to ask yourself is which field in media studies interests you the most? Once you identify that, then what will be your preferred job in the media industry based on your field that you're interested in? And with that position in mind, will this position have any effect on the financial position of the company? So normally when we say financial position, we also include financial performance, the income, expenses, the growth of the company. If you are currently working, do you have, when you current with the current position that you hold, what effects does it have? Because in terms of any industry or any company, every single position that you hold have got a positive impact and a negative impact based on what you're doing towards the financial performance of a company. If, let's say, for example, you're in broadcasting and you're working within the transmission department, if you make any mistake there and therefore the transmission gets to be lost between the company and the people who are actually watching the show or watching your um, the TV, which means that this connection will actually get to do what? Will actually get to have an impact in terms of the viewers of the show, which means that also the company will lose some revenue by having a bad review in terms of that. So every field within the finance. So this subject does not only get to impact you in terms of a workplace if you are an employee. It will also have a benefit in terms if you're going to open your own business in terms within the media industry. It can either be internet cafe, which also have like printing, your advertising, your marketing. All of these will fall within. You also need basic knowledge and underlying concept of the finance subject. So the aim of the module is to introduce you to the basic concept and principle of finance in media organization, and it will provide you with foundational knowledge of the current terminology and concept of finance. So during this semester, these are the following concept or topics that we are going to cover. Business mathematics is the first one that we're going to cover, applying mathematical concept to practical problems. And then later on, we're going to do basic calculation and statistics, interpreting financial results, managing working capital and cash of media enterprise, then controlling inventory of a media enterprise, and then lastly applying the basic principle of financial planning and control when managing a media enterprise. So these are all the topics that we are going to cover within the current subject. So what to read and what to watch each and every lesson, or before each and most of the time before each and every lesson, there will be a PowerPoint presentation or slide uploaded in the call campus. So you have to go and pre-read it, and it will also direct you to say uh, which lesson are we going to cover in terms of the first class and the second class. What type of recording do you have to pre-watch before you come into the lesson, so that you have got a basic concept, or you have got a basic understanding of what you're going to cover. And also pre-studying is also good because it also assists you in terms of understanding the concept whatever once you are start to being taught the concept. So what to read, subject outline and subject schedule, it's available on Core Campus. And then your current textbook, or the textbook that is being recommended, it is the Finance in Media 4th edition, which the publisher is Edge Education. And for this lesson, we're going to cover page 1 to 16. And then there is a YouTube video that I believe you have already watched it if you have been on the Call Campus, since these have already been uploaded on the Call Campus. What to do during our lessons, this is what I expect you guys to do, is to attend your class regularly, whether this is online or campus. Since you're part-time, I prefer that you attend all your classes online, and attendance will also be tracked as well. I will be downloading attendance register and keeping them for safekeeping. And then you also need to participate in the engagement and practice activities in class and on campus, participate in the online discussion forum on Cal Campus, and then complete textbook activities covered in this lesson. So each and every lesson will also be referring you to the textbook activities that you need to perform. And then once you perform them, if you're finding difficulties, that's when you can set up an appointment with me, and then we shall meet in campus, or also set up an online appointment where you can consult wherever you are through the MS Teams, which I will send the link to you based on the time that you requested and agreed on. So in terms of lesson 1, these are the learning outcome that you should be able to, or you should have achieved by the end of the lesson. So I'm just going to focus on the main one for today. So the main lesson outcome for today is that you need to understand our number system, which is relating to business mathematics, where in our number system we'll have got different types of numbers, where we're also going to learn them and understand them, and then understand the difference between the estimation and approximation, and lastly understand the accuracy of approximation. And as part of the learning outcome, you need to engage with the lecture and learn about the subject in detail. So in most cases, or in most scenario, people always ask themselves to say, why is it important to learn finance or to learn more about numbers, whereas I'll just be working with people? So as I've mentioned earlier, is to say that numbers plays an important role in our life. We work with numbers on a daily basis. When we wake up, we still look at time, try to see if we can manage to do everything in time, go to work. That's all adding numbers in our head to say that I have 30 minutes, I have 20 minutes. It can take me 15 minutes if I finish. If I leave at home at 6 o'clock, I can be at work by 6:15. So also when we're driving, the speed of the car, the to adhere to the rules of the road, the speed limit, so all of those have numbers within. So it is important that we understand the numbers as well as the basic mathematics that work within our daily life. But under this lesson, we're going to focus on them and then try to apply them into a financial perspective, where we're going to be learning how to use numbers in a business environment, where we're going to be doing estimate, understanding financial statement, how can we do projection in terms of revenue, because some of you are going to end up as what we call business owners, some of you are going to be media company managers, executive. So you will be working with numbers on a daily, and therefore you need to be able to have the basic skills that one needs to have to succeed in any business environment. So introduction of our topic in terms of, remember our topic, it's business mathematics. So here it says that numbers plays an important part in our everyday life. So under this module and lesson, it's about the use of number in a business, finance and metrics with reflection on a media environment. And numbers are important in media the same way they are important in finance. So as we're gonna be talking about finance. Finance is all about money, and therefore money is all about what? Numbers. So we're all gonna be playing around numbers a lot. So therefore it is important for us to start at the basic of understanding what? Numbers. So therefore for a media organization to be successful, employees and management needs to be to understand the finance of the business and their contribution. So we have got something called the matrix. In every business or each and every sector or each and every division of a company have got its own business matrix. So a matrix refers to a quantifiable measure that is used to track or assess the business performance or a division performance. For example, we have got a marketing department. Under a marketing department, there will always be something, well, the metrics that are falls within the marketing department is that your marketing manager will always get to track the campaign in terms of how the campaign is going, the program statistics, the sales as well, to say what are our sales, what are we going to achieve this year, what are we currently looking in terms of new opportunities, what are the likelihood of this actually going to happen. So all of these involve mathematics and numbers within as well. So the aim of understanding the mathematics as well as finance is to also groom your mind to be able to think outside the box, to have that critical thinking structure, to be able to come up with ideas, to be innovative in terms of things that will be able to bring revenue to the media company or within a company. So here it says that, see an example on page 4 in terms of different metrics, measures that could be used for different perspectives. So in terms of the textbook, if you go and take a look in terms of page 4, it talks about some of the example of metrics to say that if you're looking in terms to measure success in relation to customer perspective, we're going to take a look in terms of customer satisfaction index, the number of time people actually get to repeat to buy the same item or purchase, number of returned orders where people do not get to like the product or the product become too full and therefore leads to customer sales going down or to the sales going down. So these are the things that in terms of the metrics we're going to be assessing to say that, okay, in terms of return orders, we have got more return orders which are almost the same as our sales, meaning that we're not actually making money. So therefore you will therefore have to actually come up with a plan to say what can we do to actually get to improve this. So we can see that we've got a 30% decline. So how do you understand that 30% decline? So that's what actually gets to happen. So I see someone is trying to request what do we call this, control. Please note that no one can have control. The reason is behind that is because I'm trying to avoid where we're gonna have interruption in terms of the lesson. So yes, I understand your message. Your message have been acknowledged. She's having difficulties in terms of her Teams. It's currently not working properly due to network load shedding that is currently happening. So moving forward with our lesson, still on page number 4, another metrics that could be used to measure the success in relation to internal perspective, the efficiency improvement and reduction in unit cost. For example, you're in a media environment, you're actually producing banners or either whatever you might be producing within your media industry. So in order for you to be able to measure the growth or whether the company is performing well in terms of internal review, therefore you're going to take a look in terms of reduction in unit cost, to say that hey, did we manage to reduce the cost and by how much. So these are the things that you actually gonna take a look into. Amount of rework in case if you're working on projects and then those projects always gets to be redone. So these are the things that you actually going to focus on. So that is all in terms of understanding that each and every business sector or every division or every position have got what we call the matrix. So if you are an employee within a current organization or wherever that you are currently working, some of you have got what we call KPIs or KPAs, key performance indicators, key performance action or task. So these are what actually gets to be measured in terms of you, in terms of whether you are performing well or not, and whether in terms of your division is performing well. So you always have got targets that you need to achieve. So those targets are measured in terms of numbers. So you need to understand numbers for you to be able to explain in terms of how your KPIs are and how you are actually performing towards the target that you are actually given. So our number system. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the number system that is being used in terms of the South African standard or that have been adopted in South Africa or Africa as a whole. So most of the time we adopt a number system that is called what we call the Hindu Arabic system. So the Hindu Arabic system only get to use 10 digits. So those 10 digits are what our whole number system in South Africa is based on. For example, our number system, or in reality, our number system is based on 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we don't have any number outside that. We only have got 10 digits that all the numbers place around. So that kind of system, we call it a 10 based digit system or 10 based number system. So all our numbers are from 0 to 9, which are 10 digits. So these are the type of number system that we work in. So here you can see that we've also given you an example in terms of a computer. So those who are in programming or those who use computers, they use a binary system. So a binary system only have got two digits, 0 and 1. So we call that a base 2 number system. So they only get to use that in terms of a computer. But in the South African perspective, in terms of finance, anything that relates to number, except if you are working in computer, but you're talking of normal activities, normal uh, number activity or finance activities, will be referring under the Hindu Arabic, which is a 10 base system where we're going to be referring to numbers. So we've got types of numbers that we're actually going to work on or work with for this whole current semester. So we need to understand all these kind of numbers and how they actually get to have an impact in terms of us performing our calculations. So we've got the face value and place value. That's the first type of number we're going to take a look into. And then we've got the whole numbers, and then we've got the negative numbers, we've got integers and number line, we've got fractions, and we've got rational and irrational numbers. So some might be wondering, why is this important? So all of these are important in terms of you understanding the basic concept of finance. So you're gonna be working with all these type of numbers in terms of finance. You need to be able to pronounce the numbers, you need to be able to round off the numbers, you need to be able to understand the basic rule behind the fraction, how the fraction work, whether this number is rational or irrational, how do you get to determine such. So this concept actually help us in terms of the critical thinking, in terms of coming up with ideas as well with the basic knowledge of adding mathematics. So we're gonna start first with what we call the place value or the face value. So the place value and the face value represent the position where a digit is. So as I've already mentioned, we've got only 10 digits, 1 up to 0 to 9. So these are the 10 digits that we're going to be working with. But then the most important thing in finance is that you need to be able to pronounce your numbers. So when you look at this number like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is what we call a face value. So what you're looking at as this as a whole is what we call a face value. So this is what we just referred as a face value. This face value means that you read the number as a whole. So if I was to read this, I will say this is 123,456,789. So you need to understand what each and every uh, number in that in this whole face value represent. For example, we have got the first one, which is the 1. So what does the 1 represent? So the 1 represents the million in terms of hundreds. So if we were to read this, we're going to say 100 million. So if we're only reading the 1, we'll say 100 million. Then when we take a look in terms of the 2, so the 2 represent the million, but in terms of tens. So therefore, when we read the 2, we'll say what? 20 million. So like I read this, say 123 million. And then we have got the 3. The 3 represent the million, but in terms of ones. So in terms of ones, we are saying that we are starting a new number. Once you see the space, we start a new number. So here we're representing the million in ones. So therefore, we're gonna have the what? 3 million. So some of you are already familiar with the concept of reading, understanding numbers, but it's also important to understand the value, to say that if we're to say round off to the nearest million, you need to understand where do you cut off the numbers and round off, which we're gonna be doing at a later stage under estimation and approximation. And then the value of 4, what is the value of 4? The value of 4 is in thousands, so therefore, and under hundreds, so therefore it represents 400,000 if we to read it out loud. But in terms of its value, it's in hundred thousands. So therefore, what is the value of this? It will be 4 times 100,000, meaning that it's 400,000. And then we've got the last. So also, this amount does not include decimal, so we also have got decimal. So decimal are all digits that are behind the zeros. So we have got the decimals. So this decimal can be either used as a point or as a comma. So to separate the whole numbers and the others and the decimals, therefore we're gonna use a point. So coming forward, so we're gonna take a look in terms of the whole numbers. We're gonna take a look in terms of the negative numbers, the number line, as well with integers, fraction, and what we call rational and irrational numbers. Please just give me a short moment just to turn on the light. So thank you for that. Coming back to the whole number thing and our number system. So firstly, we've covered the face value and the place and the face value. So in terms of the place and the face value, I did mention that we've got the face value, which is the number that we're actually seeing, and then the place value is to determine the digit where it is placed, to say that if the digit is within the thousand, we need to be able to identify that, and that you also need to be able to express that. So on your textbook, it's on page 5 and 6. So if we take a look in terms of example page, example 1a on page 6, there is a number there that is being written, which is 2,619,347, which is the number that is being written. So the number can also be expressed in terms of writing it in terms of notes, in terms of words. So therefore, if it's written in terms of words, you also need to be able to express the number in terms of words. So there they've expressed it in words, and they've also expressed it in terms of place value, to say that the 2 that we're actually seeing, it's in millions, so therefore it's 2 in millions in terms of hundreds, so therefore we've got 200 million. And then the 5 represent the millions in terms of the tenth, so therefore we've got 50 million if we're looking at the 5. And in terms of the 4, it's representing the millions in terms of the ones, so therefore we've got 4 millions. And then in terms of the 6, we've got 6 representing the thousand in terms of hundreds, so therefore that will be said as 600,000. And then the 1 represent the thousand in terms of tens. So therefore, if we're to say that out loud, will be 10,000. And then the 9 represent the thousand in ones, therefore we'll refer it as a 9,000. And then going forward, the 3 represented as 100, so therefore we'll refer it as 300, and the 4 it's under within the tenth, therefore we'll call it what, uh, 40, and therefore 7 as it is stands under the ones, so therefore will be referred as a 7. So this is all from your textbook under page 6. So now we're going to take a look in terms of a different type of numbers, which we have got the whole numbers. So here it says that the whole numbers are the numbers without the fraction, and it is a collection of positive numbers and zeros. So it is represented by the symbol W if you are talking about a symbol that represent the whole numbers. So whole numbers start from 0 as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So these are all what we also refer them as our number system, which is from the Hindu-Arabic system where we only have got 10 digits. So whole numbers can either be positive and also be negative. But normally here they say that whole numbers are a positive positive numbers collection is starting from 0. And then we also have got negative numbers. So negative number is a number that is less than 0, and negative numbers are often used to represent a magnitude loss or deficiency. So negative number, we use them also to measure in terms of something that is less compared to the other. So negative numbers are written with a minus sign in front. For example, minus 7, so meaning that this will be pronounced either minus or negative 7. So the negative sign tells you how far away you are from 0. So if minus 2, it is 2 steps away from 0. So I also believe that some of you never did mathematics from during your high school times. So therefore you also find some challenges. That's why we're also giving you the basic of understanding the number system. So in terms of integers and the number line. So integers, it's a number with no decimal or fraction. What do we mean no decimal, no fraction? Meaning that it does not have a comma, or it's not something that is out of something. So it is just a number as it is. So it's a whole number, and we can either have a negative or a positive integer. So it also include a 0. So an integer can actually be seen or can be visualized through a number line. So therefore we can put integers in terms of a number line. So integers start in the middle with a 0, and when you move to your right, you can have your positive numbers from 1 up to infinity. So infinity is where we do not know where the amount ends, so we could refer it as an infinity. And the symbol for infinity is given as below. So this is your symbol for infinity. It looks like shades without the frames. So this will be the sign for your infinity. And then from the middle, going from 0 going to your left, will all be your negative numbers. So those are what we call negative integers numbers. So it says that integers include all whole numbers and negative numbers. This means if we include negative numbers along with whole numbers, we form a set of integers. Do integers. So therefore we're going to have your positive number, your negative number, and 0 in the middle. So therefore that's what we call integers, and therefore if we put them in a line, we have what we call a number line. So this number line does not only just get to be used in terms of performing just mathematics, also when you're doing your sketches, your drawings, so you will also need to understand your integers, your negative and positive, as well as 0. So when you plot your graphs, when you design your items in terms of your media studies design, so you also need to understand that the value that are being used there to draw or within your drawing board, they are also what we call integers. So these integers can actually be put in terms of a graphical or mathematics, uh, what we call as, I forgot what they call the system, but this system is where we have got your first quadrant, your second quadrant, your third quadrant, and your fourth quadrant. where under the first quadrant everything is positive, under the second quadrant it's a mix of positive and negative, and then the third quadrant it's a all negative, and then the fourth it's a positive and a negative. And therefore all these quadrant, and they will label that this is the x-axis, and they will label that this is the y-axis. All of these are actually getting to use integers. So therefore for you to understand the integers, the whole numbers, is that highly important. Also, when you start performing your Excel, doing your presentation, your analysis, you also need the understanding of all of this. So that's how the build-up of mathematics to finance gets to be used. So this one is explaining in terms of what I just mentioned, to say that where the number line end, we call it infinity because we do not know the value of that end amount. So it just continue from millions to billions, from billions to trillion, from trillion to quadrillion. So it just keep on going and keep on going. So that's when we use the number line to compare integers, the negative, the positive, and then whatever we reach the end, we just say that up to infinity. So in terms of the activities, this is on page 8 in terms of whole numbers, integers. So if you take your textbook and you open up to page 8 and 9, you will be able to see the negative numbers, integers, and number line. I see there are people actually struggling in terms of what we call network connection. I see Rubish has been on and off from there. So meaning that also other people might be struggling, or they might have load shedding, which they'll just be waiting for it to actually come to join. I see someone was trying to type a message. Kailishle, I see that you were trying to type a message, so I will be coming to you now. Let me just give you the mic and unmute you. So I've given you the mic. If you've got a question, you can unmute yourself and then raise your question. Unless you will prefer typing. Yes, based on the timetable, we'll only be having finance in media for part-time student, which is going to be on Monday only, from 6 up to 8 o'clock. So meaning that the class is divided into two sessions. The first session, which will be a different lesson, the second session another lesson. So let's continue. And I'll also explain more information while also others start to join the lesson, which will also be very much helpful. So moving forward with our lesson, so we've got an activity in terms of page 9, which you can actually try to attempt in terms of the greater, less than. If you understand the greater and less than, to say that -1 is less than 1, and -8 is less than -7, and 10 is greater than -3, -705 is less than 615. So these are just example of integers for you to be able to understand. If someone says which one is bigger between -5 and -15, so just because the other one is having 15 and the other one is 5, but because they are both negative, which means that you also need to start to think of what the negative sign means. It means that we are 15 times away from 0, meaning that that is lesser compared to -5. So those are the type of terminology that you also have to put in terms of when it comes to the critical thinking that you'll have to apply in business finance. And then we also have got what we call the fraction. So the fraction represents the parts of a whole number. So fraction has two parts. We've got a fraction looks like this. So you'll be having your number on top that will be divided by another number. So the number on top, we refer it as a numerator, and the number below, we refer it as a denominator. So a function always uses what we call integers or whole numbers. So you can either found, let's just say that it uses integers. So it tells how many equals part of a whole number are taken, and the number below the line is called the denominator. It shows the total number of equal parts the whole number is divided into. So which will be our what? Which will be an integer, which is a whole number. So it continue to say that fractions that allows positive number effectively means a bit more than the number to its left, and the fraction next to the negative number, it means a bit less than the number to the right. So if we were to look in terms of fraction in terms of the number line, so meaning that all the numbers that will be on the right, a fraction that will be given on your number line moving forward, therefore it will actually show that this is extra or this is bigger than the one on your left. And then if you see the number fraction on the right, on your left side, and there is another number on the right side, it means that the fraction that you're seeing on the left is less compared to the number on the right. So here it says that let's visualize the fraction by zooming into the number line. Let's zoom in between 2 and 3 from the number line. So from the textbook on page 10, you will see that they zoom between the number line, which is 2 to 3, and therefore you will be able to see that between 2 and 3 there will be 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, 2.6. All of those can also be written as a fraction, meaning that 2.1 will be written as a fraction, which will be 2 as a whole 1 out of 10. So that will be the fraction that will be representing what? 2.1. So meaning that this fraction is after 2, meaning that it's a positive, and it's meaning that it's what? It's a bit more than 2. So as we continue moving forward, so therefore it also represents that the fraction is going, meaning that the number after the next it's gonna be the bigger one. So those are what we call fraction. And then we've got rational and irrational numbers. So rational numbers refer to whole numbers as it is itself, as well as fraction. So it says that here that a rational number is any number that can be written as a fraction, where both the numerator, the top number, and the denominator, which is the bottom number, are integers, and the denominator is not equal to 0. So if you divide any number by 0, the final answer is 0, or it's actually an error. So meaning that if we're talking about rational numbers, your denominator is not supposed to be 0. And any number divided by 1, it's that number. So meaning that it's going to become what? A whole number. And then in terms of rational numbers can be expressed as a fraction, where the fraction will be having either one of the integers, a positive integer or a negative integer, or both positive integers or both negative integers. And then where it is gonna be in decimal, it means that it will be a recurring decimal. For example, if you go and say 1 out of 3 on your financial calculator, if you go and say 1 out of 3, it's gonna say 0.33333333 going forward. So that's what we call a recurring decimal. So we refer it as a rational number. If you also go and say 10 divided by 3, is gonna say 3,33333333. So meaning that that's also a rational number. So the opposite of that is what we refer as irrational number, meaning that it is a type of real number which cannot be expressed as a single fraction, and it cannot be expressed in terms of a ratio. So a ratio, we're also referring to this. So this is actually a ratio, 1/3. So it means that it cannot be expressed as a ratio, or to say that this is half of this, this is 1/3 of this is 3/4 of this. So it cannot be expressed like that. So irrational number, for example, we've got a pi in terms of mathematics, not the one that we actually get to eat. So in terms of the pi symbol or the pi in maths, we've got pi in terms of, if you calculate the value of pi, it's 3.141 1415 something going forward. Those numbers behind the pi does not get to change. They remain the same. They do not get to recur or actually get to change. They remain the same. So please just give me small minutes just to reset my chair. And then another irrational number, we've got a square root of 2. So if you do a square root of 2, you'll find that it's gonna give you some numbers that at the end of the decimal do not reoccur, meaning that they do not repeat numbers. So for example, I'll just put on my calculator, and then we'll be able to see how the numbers actually gets the irrational numbers actually get to look like. So irrational numbers, just waiting for the calculator to quickly open. Because the one that I have, it's a financial mathematics and doesn't show. So if you go and say, for example, here, square root of 2, and you said it's equals to, you will see that now here we're going to have this number as in terms of non-recurring decimal. So we have got 4142,135. So these numbers are not recurring, they are not repeating. So therefore we classify this kind of numbers as irrational numbers. But if we go and say square root of 4, just a moment. If we say square root of 4, it's just gonna give us 2. If I say square root of 5 and say equals to, you will see that the numbers are not recurring. So therefore we refer this as a recurring, as a what? We're gonna call this a irrational numbers. And while still busy talking about numbers, one of the numbers that I also want to talk about is the odd numbers and even numbers, which is something that have been left out from the textbook, which I just want to bring into light. So in terms of our whole numbers can be divided in terms of odd and even numbers. So where odd numbers are all numbers that are not divisible by 2, meaning that you can never divide that number by 2. And even numbers are all numbers that when you divide by 2, they will give you another whole number. For example, 4 divided by 2, it will give you 2. If you say 8 divided by 2, that will actually give you what? 4 as a whole number. So all of those are what we call even numbers. And odd numbers, some of them they are divisible by 3, but not all of them. So odd numbers refers to 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. So they are a growth in terms of 2 in terms of each other, all the what? The odd numbers. So it will be like from 1 you add 2 and it become 3, and then you add 2, you have what we call 5, you add 2, you have 7. So they grow up by that pattern: 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, just by that pattern. So then we've got 19, so we skip 18. 18 becomes an even number because it is divisible by 2. So any number that is not divisible by 2 becomes a what? An odd number. And any number divisible by 2 becomes an even number. So why am I saying this, and how is this important? If you are looking at a mathematical equation, I'm just going to bring back the calculator. Or if you are thinking of numbers and you want to try to solve a number, if the number looks something like this and it says 1, 2, I'm just going to enter a number, and then we're going to try to do that. So the moment you see a number like this, 120,359 divided by 2, what you actually get to look first into is that is the top number odd number or an even number. When you take a look in terms of the last number, so the last number will determine 1357, so and 9. So if the last number fall within the odd numbers of 13579, it means that whatever you are trying to go to, whatever you're going to get there, if you're dividing with a even number, you are going to have recurring decimal or decimal after your division. So if I click equals to, we're gonna have zero point 0.5. But if this is a whole number, it's an even number, to say that this was 6, so we're just gonna have a full number without decimals. So these are the some of the skills that you will get to learn as time goes on, to say that if we're looking in terms of number, but if this was 3, and here you can see the last number is 3, which 3 can go 2 times, so therefore we're gonna have a whole number without decimals. So you can see that we're gonna get something like this because of the odd number that we are currently using. But then again, if you go and take and put something here to say that this was 9, so you will see that it will always have a recurring, as long as there is an odd number involved in terms of either division or the last number, the number that you're actually dividing is an odd number, therefore you can expect a decimal or you cannot expect a decimal. So at the moment this is between 2468, to say that it was like this, and whatever you're dividing it by here, it's actually 2, therefore expect the number to be a whole, not to be having decimals. So these are some of the skills you learn as time goes on. So before we start with the estimation and rounding off, does anyone have got any question in terms of what we just covered? Yeah, I see Ruby's hand is up. Okay, I've given you the mic. You can unmute and ask the question. So I see Rubish is asking if 0 is an irrational number. So 0 is not an irrational number. It's a rational number because it is a whole number. So we refer it as a rational number or a whole number, so it doesn't become a rational number. So on our textbook, we've got activity 1C. So before activity 1C on our textbook, we also have got under page 10 different types of fraction that we can actually get to learn. We've got a fraction that is given as a common fraction. A common fraction is those a divided by 10, 15 divided by 30. Those are what we call a common fraction. And then we've got decimal fraction. Decimal fraction is where you express a fraction as a percentage. So let me see if I can get my calculator or any calculator here, and then I'll be able to, but the financial calculator will not get to show anything. So if you see a number represented in this format, say 0.25, so this is a decimal fraction, so this is actually 1 out of 4. So 1 out of 4 gives us 25% or 0.25. So it is now expressed as a decimal fraction. And then also I've got a proper fraction. A proper fraction refers to when the numerator is less than the denominator. So for example, when you have got 1 out of 4, this is also referred to as what we call a proper function. And therefore, if you found it written like this, 0.25, therefore we refer it as a decimal fraction. And then an improper fraction, it's when we're going to have 5 out of 4. 5 out of 4, it means that now we have got an improper fraction, meaning that the number which is the numerator is bigger than the denominator. And then we've got mixed numbers. Mixed numbers or mixed number fraction is when we have got something like this, but now it has been expressed into its simplest form. I'll just give an example to say 2, 1 out of 2. So this is what we refer it as a mixed number, meaning that this, if it was to be expressed, it will be expressed in terms of 5 out of 2. It will be expressed as 5 out of 2, meaning that or it can be expressed as this. So it will be an improper fraction, but then expressed into its simplest form. Therefore, it will become what we call a mixed number. And then we've got recurring decimal, like I've already explained the recurring decimal, 0.00000, 0.333333, 0.666666, then lastly say 7. So those are type of what we call recurring decimals. And then there are also others that are also mentioned there in the textbook. So please make sure that you just take a look into those. And then after that, we're going to try and attempt activity 1C, which I believe you can be able to identify based on the look in terms of what is being given in terms of possible fraction that you might come across, or various terms involving fractions. So moving forward, let's start with a new concept, which is now actually what we call the estimation and rounding off. So what is estimation and what is approximation? So most people always confuse approximation and estimation. So please just give me a second. Uh, thank you for the time. I see Kailisha is still typing, so you can still be typing. Yes, you can ask question during the week while we are doing on Call Campus, or you can also send me an email to say that I'm finding some challenges. Can you please explain the following? If it's explainable through the email, I'll be able to reply through the email. I'll just type in the explanation. My email is here on the PowerPoint presentation, but I'll also make it available on the Call Campus front page. So the moment you enter your Call Campus, you'll also be able to see my email. So I'll also send it to you now while we are busy with the lesson. Please do not use the one currently on the Call Campus, which is the personal one, because it involves a lot of emails. So your email might be stuck in the whole traffic of emails that I have to go through. So I've just sent the email that you are supposed to use under the what we call the chat section within this lesson. So please take a look into it and take note. It says hurisani@boston.co.za. So in terms of the estimation and rounding off, so here it says that estimation is the mental skill of making an educated guess, and it is an approximation that has been decided upon through making a judgment, read, and then done by counting and measuring or doing a calculation. So let's take a look in terms of how do we estimate. So in terms when we say that we are estimating, so we're just actually giving a guess. So the first thing, it's a guess, but that guess have to be an educated guess, and it's based on a judgmental case where you guess to judge to say that actually from my home to the next complex that is around my place, it can take me 15 minutes if I'm walking. So that is just an estimated guess. You don't actually have the right measurement to say that how long is the distance from your home to that place. So you're just putting an estimated guess. But now let's say, for example, you have got what we call the number of kilometers from your house to the mall, and now it says that it's 10 kilometers, and then based on Google it says that that will be 26 minutes. So you can actually then do an approximation to say that, but if I walk fast that will be 20 minutes. So that's what we call approximation. So you are rounding off now to say that if I actually get to work, because this is based on normal. So estimation, it's when there is limited information, and approximation, this is when there is enough information for you to be able to give your new rounded off estimated, which when you estimate through when there is information, and then estimation itself, it's when you estimate without anything. So that's why I separate them to say that it's estimation and rounding off. So you're rounding off based on the scenario information given. So in terms of here, in terms of rounding off, it says that rounding off means a number is made simpler by keeping its value intact but closer to the next number. It is done for whole numbers and for decimal at various places of hundreds, tens, and tenths. So in order for you to be able to understand round off, you also need to understand the place value to say that what are you rounding off the number to the nearest. So this is where the rounding off and the place value comes into play to say that you have got the following number. To say that you've got the following number, I'm just trying to get something to type, and unfortunately I'm not managing to get it. So I'll just write a number here. That's a 3, and that's another 3, and that's another 0. So if you were asked to say that round off the following number to the nearest thousand, so meaning that you are going to count to say window which value does our thousand start at. So our thousand start off at this value. So if we are rounding off to the nearest thousand, we're gonna just take a look into this value to say that is the value before the thousand above 5 or below 5. So if the value before the thousand is above 5, therefore it's gonna change the value under the thousands to the next value. So meaning that if this to example to say that this was actually 5, let's say this was actually 5. So meaning that we are gonna round off this to 211,000. So when we say off this figure to someone, we're gonna say no, this costs us 211,000. So that's what we call rounding off. So rounding off, you take a look to say under what value you are running off. Are you running off to the nearest hundreds, millions, thousands? So if it is millions, therefore you're gonna look in terms of the last million, the first million value, and then the one on the thousand to say that is it above 5 or below 5. So using the same example in terms of rounding off. So I'm just gonna put it back in terms of to say that it was 3. So rounding off this again to the nearest thousand, because this value is below 5. So therefore if we're rounding off this to the nearest thousand, we're gonna say this is only 210. So meaning that the 0 won't change to 1 because of the 3 being less than 0. But if let's say here it was 4 and here it was 5, so when we round off, meaning that here we're gonna say this is going to be 215,000. So that's what we call a rounding off in terms of value. So when you do the rounding off or approximation, you also need to have what we call more information. So rounding off can only be done when there is information, and it says that rounding off numbers is done to preserve the significant figure. So this amount is 230,000, 210,330. So meaning that if we're to round off, we'll just say this is 210,000. So meaning that the amount still keeps its significance, meaning that it is still under its thousand, so it doesn't lose its meaning. So if we take the example that is given there, it says that 58,3586 rounded off to the nearest 2 decimals. So under this case, we're going to take 2 decimals. So the first decimal, the second decimal, and then we'll then take a look in terms of the third one. Is it the third one above 5? If the third one is above 5, therefore it's gonna add a 1 to the second decimal, because we're rounding off to 2 decimal, meaning that the 8 will therefore change the 5 to 6. So therefore we're gonna have the new rounded off amount being 58,36. So you don't take a look in terms of the fourth digit, only the one after the one that you're rounding off. For example, if we're to round off this to the nearest hundreds, so we're gonna go and say if we're to round this off to the nearest hundred, we're gonna say this is 210,300, because this 3 will not change the 4 because it's below 5. So the 3, because it's below 5, meaning that the 3 will remain the same. So therefore we round it off to the nearest 300, to the nearest 100, being 210,300. So we are still keeping the significance of the amount or the figure. So here it says that when rounding off the value to the nearest nth, the value after the nth. So what does the nth represent? The nth represent either if you are rounding off to the nearest tens, you are rounding off to the nearest hundred. So you will take a look at the value next to the nth value that you're actually going to do what? To rounding off at. So therefore, if it's above 5, therefore the nth value will increase, and if the value is below 5, the nth value will remain the same. So there is an activity that is given here. Sorry about this. There is an activity 1D to say that try to do an estimation of the following number. It says on your page 13, which is activity 1D, 47 times 22. Try to give your best estimation. They give you 3 possible answers. Either pick one, which is 1000, B 10,000, C 100,000. They just only tell you 47 times 22. So just estimate how much will that be. So you are working with limited information. There is not much that you can work with, or you don't have anything. So by just a guess of that, you also need to be able to identify what will be the best estimate. Someone could say 1,000, someone will say 10,000, but because it's an estimate, there is no wrong estimation. You're just estimating. There is only a close and a far estimation based on what you just estimated. So one of the trick thing about maths that I'll just say now is that if you're multiplying two values which are in terms of the ones, 2 times 2, because they are 2, you can expect the number to remain under the ones value or to become the tenth. But if there is a tenth and you're multiplying it with one value, expect that amount to remain within the tenth, or that amount to actually move to the hundreds. But if it's a tenth to a tenth, then expect the number to be in thousands value. So meaning that we're gonna be expecting now in thousands value or hundreds value. So those are the type of amount that we're gonna take a look into to say that okay, I'm multiplying 10 by 10, so we have got the 10th to the 10th. So 10th to the 10th, what are the chances of it being still remaining to the 10th? So there are very slim chances that it might move to the what? To the thousands or hundreds. So those are what the things that you need to familiarize yourself with in terms of basic mathematics and as well as rounding off. So here it continued to say that estimation is a mental skill and educated guess, judgment, approximation. It's is close to true value, and true value you have to be known first, and therefore also called the rounding off. Therefore we get to round off. And then we've got something called the accuracy of approximation. The accuracy of approximation is to actually estimate. So accuracy of approximation is actually to estimate, to say that what will be the future value. So that thing of us, or the thing that we normally do in our daily life, to say that someone asks you to say that how much do you think the new Nike or the new Air Jordan might cost you, and then you just be like somewhere plus to minus 15,000 or 5,000. So that's what we call approximation, accuracy of approximation. So you're just giving an estimate based on what you think might be the possibility, or might have the possibility outcome of either being the exact amount or higher or lower than what you just estimated. So it's called the accuracy of approximation. So the moment you say it might be somewhere plus or minus 1.5, the moment you say that, you have already done what we call accuracy of approximation. But now in terms of the accuracy of approximation, it can be applied in finance. So when you apply it in finance, it's when we say that what do you think of the new product? What do you expect the new product to be in terms of the revenue? How much revenue can we expect based on the new project or the new product? So therefore, based on the marketing team, they will tell you that we expect plus or minus 90,000 sales, meaning that the sale can actually be somewhere between 80,000 include up to 100,000, even above the 90,000. So that's what we call accuracy of approximation. But if there is a base to say that last year's sales were 20,000, and then based on the current economic condition, we expect it to be plus or minus 15%. Plus or minus 15% as the new value. So what we are going to say is that now when we calculate the new value, we are going to say 20% multiplied by 15%. This will give us the positive uh, the positive accuracy of approximation to say that okay, it can go up by 15%. So 20% multiplied by 15%, then add the 15% to the 20,000. Therefore, that will be either the value that we might get, or we can go and say 20,000 multiplied by 15% and subtract that 15% from the 20,000. That value will be the lowest value we could expect. So if I was using a calculator, let me see if my calculator is still on. Okay, it is. So if I was using a calculator, I'll say 20,000 multiplied by 15, and 15% is equivalent, or in terms of decimal, it will be 0.15. And then if you're saying 20%, that's 0.2. If you're saying 70%, that's 0.7. If you're saying 55%, that's 0.55 in terms of decimal. So when you understand that percentage can be expressed as a decimal as well as a full percentage figure, which is going to be a whole number. So once we multiply this, it's going to be equal to 3,000. So meaning that the minimum that we could expect is 20,000 minus 3%, minus 3,000, which is minus 15%. So the expected sales could be 17,000 or 20,000 plus 3,000. Sorry, 20,000 plus 3,000, meaning that the expected sale should be between 17 and 23,000. If it is not somewhere between there, therefore we need to see what actually happened and evaluate our project. So when we say from the expected previous year sale of 20,000, we expect a plus or minus 15%. So the worst case scenario will be minus 17,000, and the best possible accuracy or estimation will be 23,000. So that's what we're actually saying. So we can accept anything that falls in between there. So that is what we refer as accuracy of approximation, which is the last I believe it is the last before our next current lesson. So do you guys have got any question relating to what we just covered so far? Yes, would be, I believe your mic, it's available. You can just unmute. Please unmute. Okay, I understand. You're asking to say why did I initially multiply 20% with 15% and why 20%? I'm not getting that part of 20%. Which part did I use the 20? I only used the 15%. The 20% which we are referring to plus or minus 15%. Okay, the 20% were plus or minus 50%. I was just giving an example to say that assume that your current sales for last year are 20,000. So now you're asked a question to say what should we expect in terms of sale next year. how many items do we expect to sell. So last year we sold 20,000. This year, how much do we expect to sell? So meaning that we're giving an estimation to say plus or minus 15% will be the new sales. So meaning that we expect the sale to fail because of the giving us the minus, and the positive also shows an indication that the sales can also grow. So that's when we have the minus, the plus or minus 15%. So it is also there on your textbook in terms of page 15. So in terms of page 15, activity 1F, it says that the cost per unit of product 0 estimated to be as follow the coming quarter. Direct material, it was 50 rand. They expect plus or minus 10% increase or decrease. And then direct labor, they expect plus or minus 12%. And then direct overhead, they expect a plus or minus 14% in terms of the new cost. So it says calculate the expected cost, calculate the maximum expected cost per unit. So trying to solve this out, I'm just going to do this and write it on our, I'm just gonna quickly write this on our side, and then we can be able to solve this out. So I'm just gonna quickly open my Excel. I don't have a pen to write on my screen, so I'll just use an Excel to just try to solve the issue out and try to answer the question which have been raised. So then we can actually get to understand the accuracy of uh, approximation. Please bear with me, my laptop is a bit slow currently because a number of things have been opened. So I want us to try and do some activities within the book, and then from there you guys will take over and continue with the rest. Yes, it is important that you, after the lesson, before you contact me, you can mark down the following activities that you can perform. So these are the most important activities that I want you guys to be able to understand. Activity 1A, how would you write the following numbers? Where it says 10,000, 2 trillions, 1 million, 3 billion, 5 quadrillion. So I'll just explain the difference between the numbers in terms of from thousand to from thousands to the millions or quadrillions, or how do they differ. So there is also a slide explaining that, but I want to try to explain it in a much simpler method, which you'll end up understanding more and be able to read numbers out loud without having any challenges. Okay, my Excel is a bit slow. I hope it's opening now and we can be able to do the questions. Okay, here we are. So I'm just gonna write a value here, and then I'll try to separate it to see what value do we have. So here we have got this value here, so I'm just gonna try and zoom it in. so that we can all see the value here. So we have got two, these are which right now I can't read because I don't know what value is it. So for me to be able to know what value is it, so we've got the two decimals behind here. So this is rounded off to two decimal. So what we normally do, we understand that the first number is the ones, the second number is the tenth, the third number is the hundreds. After the hundreds, we have got the thousands, then the 10,000s, the 100,000s, and then now we move to a million. So therefore we've got the first millions, the ones million, and then we've got the 10th million, the 100 millions, meaning after the 100 millions we then move to the next type of millions. Therefore we've got a billion. So this will be what we call the billion. So therefore we're gonna have what we call 2 billion. So meaning that this number, if we are to say it out loud, we'll say this is 2 billion. So how do we get to identify this without actually having to count this? So we just take a look in terms of the number before this. How many numbers are there behind this number, which is the 2? So we've got three zeros, three zeros. So the first three zero represent that there is already, their number is already above the 1,000. Once you have got another additional zeros, three zeros or three numbers, therefore we already know that the number now is above 1,000, so it could be in millions. But the moment there are other three additional zeros, so it means that we increased from the 1,000 now to millions. So meaning that from million now we're moving to billions. And then if there are other threes, we're gonna move from billions to trillion. And from trillion, if there are another threes, three numbers or three zeros, therefore we're gonna move from trillion to quadrillion. So meaning that that's how we get to identify numbers. So if I write something like this, and then I come and the number looks like this. So if you see this number like this, so you just check the number in terms of number. We've got first three digits, 6 digits by this one here, and then we've got another ninth digits before the 65. So if we've got 9 digits before the 65, that means that the first one are thousands, hundreds, then the thousands, then the million, meaning that this is actually in billion. So that's how you get to quickly identify the number to say that this is 65 billion, 465 million, 465,654. So that's how you quickly get to be able to express the number and write the number. So if we were to ask you to say, what about the number in the third middle? To say, let me just quickly change this so that they don't look the same. To say express the number written in 765 as 765. So what will be that number 765? So 765 will be 765,000. And what about the 465 will be 4,665. Then what about the 654 will be 654. So you can break down any number as long as you understand the placement value. So this is the important of understanding the placement value, to say that we're looking at 65. What is the placement value for 65? So therefore you need to count from the ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000. But without doing that, you can just count by the zeros to say that, okay, we've got three digits which represent the three zeros, three digits again represent the three zeros. The more you add those three digits or three zeros, therefore the more you grow from one type of number to the next. So once we skip the hundreds, we move to the thousand. Once we skip the thousand, we move to the million. From the million, trillion, billion. From billion, trillion. From trillion, quadrillion. Just like that, continuing forward. So coming back to our activity. Activity 1A is the one that you have to do. Activity 1B, 1C, 1D, and then we are currently on 1F. So currently we are on 1F. So in terms of activity 1F, it says that calculate the maximum expected cost per unit. So we've got direct material, we've got direct labor, and then we've got direct overheads, and then we're told that this is 50 rand, this is 30 rand, this is 17 rand. So they're asking us and they say plus or minus 10%. Okay, this one doesn't allow me, so I'll just say 10%, which is a plus or minus, and then we've got 12%, which is a plus or minus, and then we've got 14%, which is a plus or minus. I'm unable to put the plus and minus. Okay, Excel will not allow me to do that. So we'll just keep it in mind that this is a plus or minus 10,000, plus or minus 12,000, plus or minus 14,000. So we are asked to calculate the maximum. So if we are to calculate maximum, it means that we are going to be using the positive what estimation. So positive estimation will be this, which is the plus 10,000. So meaning that we are going to say 50,000 multiplied by 10% and then get that amount. So to say that how much is that amount? 50 multiplied by 10%. So therefore this will be what? 5. And then 30 multiplied by what? 30 here. And then we multiply this by the 12%. So this will give us 3.6. And then 17 multiplied by what? 14%. So this will give us what? 2.38. So since we're using the positive sign to calculate the maximum, because the negative will calculate what? The minimum. So understanding the positive and the negative. So therefore, our new value or our expected direct material cost will be 50 rand plus the new expected increase of 5 rand, which will be 55 rand. And then for direct labor, we're going to have 30 rand plus the what? 3 rand 60 cent, which is the positive 12%, which you expect as the maximum. So therefore, you're going to have 33.6. And then this side will be 17 plus the 2.38. So therefore, the maximum will be 55 plus 33.6 plus 19.38. So therefore, the expected new maximum cost per unit will be 107.98 cent. So this is what we expect as a new unit cost. And thank you for understanding. Now I've seen your comment that you understand. Very glad that you did. So this is what it's all about, the estimation, and this is all about the estimation and estimation through the positive. So assuming that we were to calculate the minimum, so this is the maximum. So assuming that you were to calculate the minimum, so if you were to calculate the minimum, it was going to be minus 12%. So meaning that here you are going to have minus 5. This was going to be minus 5, minus 3.6, minus 2.38, meaning that we expect from the current price of 7 rand to go down by minus 2.38. So that is the new way of calculating the minimum, meaning that it was going to be 50 minus the 10%, which is going to be the 5 rand. So meaning that we expect it to go down by 45. So what does it mean when they say direct material we're expecting a plus or minus 10%? It means that they're expecting the price to either go down to 45%, to be between 45% and 55 rand. So I mean 45 rand and 55 rand, meaning that the minimum price will be 45 rand and the maximum being 55 rand. So meaning that the price of direct material will fall in between the two. That is what the plus and minus actually gets to mean. So do you have got any other question? Any other question? Okay, in absence of question, I'll give us just 15 minutes from now to 8 o'clock. Under this 15 minutes, please stretch out and then join the next using the next link. So under the next link, we are going to start the new concept, which is the BODMAS. We're going to learn the basic calculation involving positive and negative numbers and applying the BODMAS rule. And then after that, I'm going to also introduce one of the finance concept, which is the accounting equation. So, which is what you actually need to understand. And that accounting equation will also be involving the adding and the subtraction of positive amounts. So, which will all lead to everything that we just learned under this first lesson. So, going back to our lesson, I believe this is the end of our lesson. So every time you finish a lesson, so to study a lesson, there will be this last PowerPoint slide which will assist you or guide you towards whether you understand or not and what do you need to do if you didn't understand. So it's asking you to say that am I ready to move on to the next lesson? If the answer is yes, it means that you can move on to the next lesson. It's a guideline to ask yourself to say did you manage to understand everything that was done. So from this it says, am I ready to move on to the next lesson? Yes, I have completed all the work set for this lesson and I am confident that I understand it. I have achieved the learning outcome, so this means that you are done with the lesson. Well done, you can move to the next. But if you have tried some activity and you don't understand the content, you will have to reattempt. And if after reattempting you still don't understand, you will contact me and then I will try to assist you to make sure that you understand. But if you reattempt and manage, therefore you can move to the next lesson. So since there are no questions right now, let's take a break. Join on the next link where I'll be using the next link to record the next class, and then we'll talk about basic calculation.